Welcome back to Hayjive Picks. I'm your host, founder, editor, and producer Hayden Iverson. Today we're going to be going over the UFC San Diego card, headlining with Marlon Chito Vera and Dominick Cruz. We will get straight into it, starting with the main event. 29-year-old Chito Vera sitting at minus 240 right now as the favorite, and 37-year-old Dominick Cruz. Chito Vera came into the UFC in November of 2014, so he's been around for a while. This is his best run in his career. He's on a bit of a streak right now. He had the great fight against Rob Font in his last time out, which he really put a beating on Rob Font. But Rob Font also, threw a ton of volume like he normally does. Chito's fight before that with the third round front kick to the face against Frankie Edgar, and then a win over Davy Grant, and then a loss over Jose Aldo. So he's on a 3-fight win streak coming into this one. Looking to make a run towards the title. Just like in his last fight, kind of a slow starter, known to be a little bit of a slow starter, but turns it up as the rounds go on. Not a ton of volume, but more precision and power. In his last fight, Rob Font gave a ton more volume throughout the fight, but Chito just landed the much harder shots. A lot of the time came at the end of the round, and if there was more time on the clock, probably would have gotten a finish. But ultimately gets the win in that one, and in a dominant fashion, really, for getting outstruck like he did. Dominantly won that one, no doubt about it. He's always got great cardio, always stays in shape, goes on long runs. He's got 7 KOs on his record, 8 subs, and has never been finished. As for Dominick Cruz, former champion, he's had 2 pretty long layoffs in his career. Most recent one coming between his fight with Cody Garbrandt and Henry Cejudo, which the fight with Cody was in 2016 and then came back in 2020. And then he also had one in a 3-year layoff with his fights between Demetrius Johnson and then Takeya Mizugaki. It's a hard one to say. But so 3-year layoff there, 2011 to 2014. His only losses are to former champions or current champions at the time. Uriah Faber, 1 loss. Cody Garbrandt, 1 loss. And then Henry Cejudo, his most recent one. 2-fight win streak, winning over Casey Kenny in a split decision, and then a win over Pedro Munoz back in December. So he's got really good movement. Everybody knows him for his movement. Very light on his feet. He's going to go in and out, stab at you, kicks, knees, just all around, not necessarily a finishing fighter, but more of a point fighter. Does have 7 KOs on his record. He's been knocked out once, and then he's got 1 sub, and he's been subbed once. So, quite the career for Dominick Cruz, 37 years old, sitting at plus 200 in this fight. It's very hard to pick against him, but at this price, plus 200, it looks pretty juicy, just based off of his experience, and he's always going to come prepared, and the way he fights could definitely win a decision that way, if he's able to get in and out and just avoid the power punches, power kicks from Chito Vera. So with Chito sitting at minus 240, I would not feel too great about it. I do think he wins the fight. So I will be picking Chito Vera for the sake of the channel, but I wouldn't feel comfortable at minus 240. I think there's other spots on the card that I'd feel more confident in, just because of the career that Dominick Cruz has had. I don't feel like Chito Vera has proven himself against this kind of competition. Just the fight IQ. Dominic Cruz is a commentator for the UFC, and if you ever listen to him when he's commentating, very high IQ, very, very smart. So I will be picking Chito Vera for the sake of the channel. I don't have any bets on this one at the moment. I know the line keeps moving in favor of Chito Vera. I think he was like minus 190 a day or two ago. So maybe by the end of the week, if, Cruz is sitting at plus 250, 220, 250, somewhere around there, I might throw a little bit on that. But at 37-year-olds, it's also very hard to back a 37-year-old against a 29-year-old. Chito's kind of coming into his prime right now. But just for the career that Dominic's had, I think it might be worth a little bit of a sprinkle there. But I'll go with Chito Vera for the sake of the channel. Moving on, we got Nate Landwehr and David Onama. David Onama, 28 years old, fighting out of Glory MMA and Fitness with head coach James Krause. Just fought back on July 9th, so a month ago to the day. Filming this on August 9th. His only loss is to Mason Jones, which was a absolute battle, big scrap. Maybe could have gone the other way, could have gone in his favor, but I do think Mason Jones won that, but gave him a hell of a fight. And then got a knockout over Gabriel Benitez, who was also on this card in February. And then just a month ago, win over Garrett Armfield, both by finish, one by KO, one by submission. So he's got 6 KOs on his record, 4 subs on his record. He's never been finished. As for Nate Landwehr, 34 years old, sitting at a plus 230 dog. Onama at minus 280. Training out of MMA Masters. 2-2 in the UFC. He's got a big underdog win in his last fight out against Ludwig Klein. Loves to push a pace. He comes to scrap. I think this one's going to be a really, really exciting fight because when Nate Landwehr, starts to land something, no pun intended, he really likes to start to unload and kind of leaves himself open sometimes. As you see against like Julian Erosa, he lost on a flying knee. And then really in all of his fights, whenever he starts to hit you, he will start to unload. And he loves to push wrestling. He's pretty good on the ground as well. Did submit Ludwig Klein with an anaconda choke in round 3. So his cardio is pretty solid. If you're able to get a submission win in round 3. And then had a decision win over Darren Elkins, and then a loss to Herbert Burns, which was a pretty nasty KO, knee to the head. But excuse me, he's got 8 KOs, 2 KO losses, and 1 sub, and 1 sub loss on his record. With Onama being at minus 280, he's probably one of my most confident plays on the card. I do have him in a parlay for 2.5 units with Lupi Godinez, I'll talk about later. And then I also have a little sprinkle on him by sub at plus 550. I know his knockout prop was not very juicy. I think that's what most people think will happen, obviously. But at plus 550 with him just getting a submission last fight, I think this is a little bit too good of a price to pass up on. That's why I'm going to throw a little sprinkle on it. I will pick David Onama to win for the sake of the channel as well. And probably one of my most confident plays. I think Onama's really good, and he's getting really good coaching with Glory MMA and Fitness. The only thing that does concern me a little bit is that he fought a month ago. So, you never know how the weight cut will go. You never know if it's just too soon to come back. But if he's taking this fight, I would assume he feels good about himself and he feels 100% ready to go. So, big on David Onama this week. May throw another straight play on him to win inside the distance, with him finishing all of his wins that he has as a pro, 10-1, 6 KOs, 4 subs, gets all of his wins by finish. So I will be looking to see what price that is for Onama to win inside the distance. It's not out yet. Might throw something on that. Stay tuned. I'll post all my UFC bets, usually either Friday or Saturday. Usually Saturday morning if it's an afternoon or a night card. I'll post them Saturday morning, every play that I have, because I do add some throughout the week, or maybe just last minute, Friday, Saturday morning after seeing weigh-ins and face-offs, stuff like that. Moving on, though, we got Yasmin Yargui and Lasmin Lucindo. I think that's the best I'm going to do with those. Those are a little tough. But two very, very young women's MMA prospects. This fight is going to be at strawweight, which is Yasmin's usual weight. As for Lucindo, she's kind of bounced around a little bit. In her last fight, which was in April, she fought at flyweight, and then last November she fought at 143, and then previous one flyweight, and a lot of fights at flyweight, and then a couple at strawweight, and then that one at 143. But she's only 20 years old. Yasmin is only 23. Yasmin had her first pro fight when she was 18, and Lucindo had her first fight when she was 15. So very, very young. Very young, but have a decent amount of fights for how young they are. Yasmin has 8 fights, 8-0, and then Lucindo 13-4, so 17 pro fights. That's a lot for a 20-year-old. But Yasmin, she's got really good hands, really quick feet. She's definitely gonna have the speed advantage in this one. She loves to keep the fight standing, but it's weird because her Instagram handle is Yasmin Jitsu. So maybe she's got some really killer jiu-jitsu that she just hasn't really shown off. She's got 6 KOs on her record and 0 subs. She's never been finished either. So that is good for her. And Lucindo, she kind of, doesn't do anything too great. She's kind of got not the purest striking, kind of looping strikes. She does mix in the takedowns though, and has pretty decent top control, top position. She's got 8 KO wins, 1 KO loss, 2 submission wins, and 2 submission losses. So that would mean she's got 17 pro fights, and 13 of them do not make it to the end of the 3 5-minute rounds. As for Yasmin, she's got 6 KOs, as I said before, and 8 fights, so only 2 of them didn't make it the distance, which is why I will have a unit play on the fight to not go the distance in this bout at plus 145. I felt like that was just too good to pass up because these two fighters come out aggressive, really push really high pace. I know Yasmin hasn't been finished, but she is a minus 210 favorite in this one. Lucindo at plus 175. I do think Yasmin Yargui wins this fight. I think she's just the better prospect. She's 3 years older. Just looks a lot better on the feet. The only way I see this fight going in favor of Lucindo is if she can push the wrestling and really just not allow Yargui to get going on the feet, which is a possibility. I'd be interested to see how the weight cut goes for her, considering she has been fighting at flyweight, and this bout will be at strawweight. So she could look a lot bigger than Yasmin. But I will be going with Yasmin Yargui in this one. I will probably, I'd be interested to see what the line is for Yasmin to win inside the distance as well. But for right now, last night I got the fight does not go the distance at plus 145. Right now it's at plus 125. So it looks like I got in on the action before it moved the opposite way. Yasmin by KO right now is at plus 225. Not bad. Probably not rich enough for me to do. I'll probably just stick with my plus 145 on the fight did not go the distance because, it is also very likely that Luceno could get a finish here as well. No scrub at all. But give me Yasmin Yargui. Moving on to the next fight, we got Devin Clark and Azamat Murzakanov, 32 years old for Devin Clark, training at Elevation Fight Team now. I saw an Instagram post of him, just his quads, probably the biggest freaking quads I've ever seen. He, like Saquon Barkley's got nothing on this guy. This guy's quads are massive. He's fought. His last fight was at heavyweight. This fight will be at light heavyweight 205. He weighed in at 223 in his heavyweight bout with William Knight. Did get the win in that one in round 3. And then has a loss to Iwan Kutalaba at light heavyweight. A loss to Anthony Smith at light heavyweight. So 1 and 2 in his last 3. This guy, he comes to fight. He's an athlete, super yoked dude. I'd be interested to see how he looks after the weight cut. He's never truly struggled to make 205. He did come in, I believe he came in as a middleweight, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, his first fight in the UFC was at middleweight, so he's made 185 before. So I don't think it'll be too big of a problem. I think mainly his last fight was at heavyweight because it was William Knight and Big Willie. Big Willie should just be a heavyweight. He hasn't made light heavyweight in a while. But for Clark, pretty decent all around. I think his path to victory is here is to push wrestling. He has shown that in the past. So you just push cage control. Throw him up against the cage, throw knees, throw elbows. Especially against Murzakanov, who's 33 years old, power puncher. He's got 8 KOs on his record, 1 sub. He is slightly undersized, though. He's only 5'10", but Devin Clark's only 6 foot, so it's not going to be too big of a difference there. But for the weight division, he's pretty undersized at 5'10". Pretty crisp striker. Comes in and out, power left hand. So the path to victory here for Clark is definitely to push the wrestling, push cage control to the best of his ability. Hopefully he can do that because I do have a 1-unit play on Clark as the dog. He's at I got it at plus 140. Right now it's at plus 130. So I got in it a little early. Actually 1.25 units on him. He's got 4 KOs, been knocked out twice, and then subbed once, and then been subbed 3 times. So not necessarily a huge finisher for his size. So I think he has to make this an ugly fight. If he just stands with him, it's probably not going to go well for him because in the Murzakanov's last fight, he was likely losing that fight until the 3rd round when he landed that flying knee against Tafon Chukwe. But I don't think he was winning that fight before that. Chukwe kind of did what I think Devin Clark should, kind of wear on him. And then I think Chukwe just kind of got tired and a little complacent, and then bam, flying knee, and Murzakanov wins. So I got the play on Devin Clark as the underdog. That means I will be taking him. I'm gonna take him for the sake of the channel as well. Don't let me down, Devin Clark. There's a path to victory for you. Take it. Just take it, man. Just make it an ugly fight. Make it not that fun to watch, and you will get double your money. You'll get your win bonus, buddy. So there's my advice to you. Moving on, Cynthia Calvillo and Nina Nunes. Calvillo, 35 years old, coming off 3 straight losses. Was a lot of hype around her for a while, and then she lost to Caitlin Chikagian, and then Jessica Andrade, and then lost to Andrea Lee. That was back in November of 2021. She's got pretty decent stand-up. Likes to work in kicks. Does nothing too amazing, but, decent on the feet. She does have a draw with Marina Rodriguez, which is kind of impressive because, Marina Rodriguez is one of the best strawweights on the planet right now. And for Calvillo, she's sitting at -170. She's got 2 KOs and 3 subs on her record. For Nina Nunes, 36 years old, so 1 year older. She's moving up from strawweight in this one. In her last fight, she was just coming off her pregnancy. That was against Mackenzie Dern. She got armbarred in the first round at strawweight. She got pretty decent stand-ups. She's got pretty good kicks, kind of decent, all around decent on the feet, and then she can get controlled on the ground pretty easily. She got controlled against Tatiana Suarez as well. Also a woman who was looked at as a pretty good contender in their division at one point, and now she's moving up to flyweight at 36 years old. 4 KOs, 2 subs. She's sitting at +145 right now in the books. This one I feel like is kind of dog or pass. It's women's MMA. 2 really, older fighters, 36 and 35 for women's MMA is not the best, considering both of them are on losing streaks as well. This one will be getting none of my money because of just how unpredictable it is. But I don't see Cynthia Calvillo looking for a takedown, which I think is probably the best path to victory, as you've seen in the past, in Nunes' past 2 fights. Both fights hit the ground, and she lost both of them. And she's also moving up in weight, so she's probably going to be a little undersized. We'll see, but maybe she's filled out 125 pretty well. But I will be taking Cynthia Calvillo for the sake of the channel, I guess. But not going to be getting any of my money whatsoever. Moving on. We got Bruno Silva and Gerald Mearshart. Silva, 33 years old, coming off a decision loss to the newly title challenger, Alex Pereira, who will be fighting Israel Adesanya in November 12th, day after my birthday. Let's go. But for Bruno Silva, absolute power puncher. 19 KOs, 0 subs. He's been subbed 5 times. He's never been knocked out. He's on. He was on a 7 straight KO streak before he lost to Alex Pereira. He did mix in a little bit of wrestling against him, which is probably not a bad idea considering, Pereira, however the fuck you say it, it was only his fifth pro fight at that time. So I hadn't really been tested in the grappling too much. And also you don't really want to stand with that guy either. So also very excited to watch, him and Izzy run it back in the next fight in November. That'll be very exciting. Silva sitting at minus 310 right now, though. As for Gerald Meerschaert, 34 years old, sitting at plus 250, coming off of a loss to Christoph Giacco. He's got the most subs in middleweight UFC history, so that is a path to victory right there. Fighting out of, was fighting out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I think he moved down to I want to say it's like Sanford MMA. I don't know. I probably should have had that, but he was on a 3-fight submission win streak over Bartosz Fabinski, Mahmoud Muradov, and Dustin Stolfus, and then had the loss to Christoph Giacco. Famously known for the nastily knocked out by Hamzat Chimaev. But also known for having the most subs in middleweight UFC history. He's got 6 KOs on his record, 26 submissions in his pro record. So this one is also tough because it's classic striker versus grappler matchup, and whoever is able to keep it, for Silva, keep it on the feet, and then for Meerschaert, get it to the ground, is probably going to win. So for Silva to be minus 310 is valid, but it's also a little red flaggy considering, he's been submitted 5 times. And Meerschaert has the most submissions in middleweight history, UFC history. So tough one. I'm going to go with Silva because just for the fact that Gerald Meerschaert doesn't have the greatest takedowns or entries, so it's going to be easier for him to keep it on the feet instead for Meerschaert to get it to the ground. It'll be easier for Silva to keep it standing, keep a distance. He just can't get wild with it. He can't be throwing wild strikes to leave an opening for Meerschaert to shoot a takedown. So give me Silva. I know his knockout prop was still minus 160 or something like that. Meerschaert's been knocked out 3 times. Yeah, his knockout prop is minus 162. So I don't really see much value in that. I could maybe even see this going the distance because Meerschaert has how many pro fights? 49. He's only been knocked out 3 times. Pretty solid. He's not going to submit him. If the fight hits the ground, it's heavily favored in Meerschaert's corner. So maybe there's some value on him by decision at plus 400. I maybe look into that. That actually looks pretty good. I'm gonna keep that in my back pocket and think about that one throughout the week. Moving on though, Martin Budaj and Lucas Brzezicki. These names on this one a little tough. I had to do a lot of film watching on this one. A lot of fighters that haven't been in the UFC or making their debut, stuff like that. But for Budaj, 30 years old. He had his first fight in the UFC last time against Chris Barnett, and he was also on the Contender Series. He really looks to wear on you, hold you up against the cage. He's a big dude. 6'4", weighed in at 265. So he probably cuts a little bit of weight to make 265. Like I said, kind of wants to push you up against the cage, wear on you, throw knees, throw elbows, but he wants to make you feel his size. As for Brzezicki, probably saying that wrong, but Polish dude, also pretty big, 6'4", last weighed in at 234.5. So not as thick as Budai. That was on the Contender Series against Dylan Potter. He did win that fight against Dylan Potter, but it was labeled into a contest. So he kind of throws, kind of wild punches. He kind of darts in at you, throws some wild punches, and then looks to clinch, throw knees, throw elbows, and then kind of backs up, and then resets, gets his breath back under him, and then does the same thing. So I would want to say he looked gassed after the first round of his Contender Series fight with Dylan Potter, but then because he threw a lot of volume, he looked pretty gassed at the end of the first round, but then came out in the second round, not as much volume, but also kept it somewhat up there, and then gets the rear naked choke in round 3 of the fight. So I wouldn't consider him to have like cardio issues, but as a heavyweight, that's he pushed a big pace for a heavyweight, which is also kind of a path to victory here for him against Budai. Budai being a big dude that just kind of wants to throw his weight on you, make you carry his weight, and if you're Lucas Brzezicki, you're going to need to keep the distance and kind of wear him out because you showed in your last fight that you can throw a lot of volume, and that'll tire out Martin Budai for sure. Both fighters are 30 years old. Budai sitting at minus 240 and Brzezicki at plus 200. For low-level heavyweights, this is just, I would think it'd be stupid to back Martin Budai at minus 240. I don't think Lucas Brzezicki is some scrub at all. And I don't think Martin Budai is some world beater by any means. So possibly some value on Lucas Brzezicki. Probably won't be getting my money. I'm definitely not going to be backing Martin Budai. Budai does have 7 KOs and 1 sub. Lucas Brzezicki 5 KOs and 2 subs. So most of their fights do end in a finish. None of the lines are out as far as like props for this fight. So I will keep an eye on that though. Maybe you get Brzezicki inside the distance at a little bit of a juicier number and throw a little sprinkle on that. That doesn't sound too bad to me. But I will you know what, fuck it. I'm gonna take Lucas Brzezicki for the sake of the channel as well. I'm gonna nut up and take the plus 200 dog. Martin Budai just doesn't do it for me, and I think he's gonna gas out. I think if Brzezicki can take him into rounds 2 and 3, and keep his distance, I think he gets a win. Because in Budai's last fight, also made it to the 3rd round against Chris Barnett, and then there was that technical decision, basically because of the hit to the head, I believe, if I remember that correctly. But I'll take Lucas Brzezicki. I'll drop my nuts out on the floor and take the big dog there. Low-level heavyweights, just give me the dog. Last time I had low-level heavyweights, I had Hamdi Abdel Wahab, and then I changed it in the week, and then lo and behold, Hamdi comes out and wins it. So not going to make that mistake here. I'm going to take Lucas Brzezicki. And maybe he'll be getting my money sometime during the week. Next fight, Gabriel Benitez and Charlie Ontiveros. Benitez, 34 years old, and coming off 2 straight KO losses. A couple, not the greatest performances from him. He gets into scraps, though, man. He leaves himself open. He kind of fights wild. At this point in his career, he's probably just looking to, put on exciting fights for the fans, which is fine. But from a betting perspective, not exactly the safest bet you're going to put out there. He's fought mostly at featherweight in his career. This fight will be at lightweight, which is Ontiveros, his normal weight to fight at. For Benitez, though, 8 KO wins, 4 KO losses, 10 subs, and 2 sub losses. His last 2 fights coming by a KO loss to David Onama, respectable, and then Billy Quarantillo, which is also respectable. He was a slight favorite against Billy, and then a little bit of a dog against David Onama. But he's sitting at minus 340 right now, which is, considering his opponent is 0-2 in the UFC in Charlie Ontiveros, 31 years old. He's had a weird career in the UFC so far. He's 11-8 in his pro career. He's got 4 KO wins, 7 KO losses, and 2 sub wins and 1 sub loss. His last fight against Steve Garcia was pretty ugly. He gets cut right on his eye, kind of like right here, and it's just bleeding everywhere. And basically, the ref stops it. I think you can kind of tell that Ontiveros wanted out of there, because he was bleeding everywhere. He gets taken down like really easily. And then he took a fight against Kevin Holland at 185 middleweight, so jumping up 2 weight classes, in which he weighed in at 182.5, so he probably didn't cut a single pound off. But yeah, he got ragdolled in that one, which you would kind of expect. He's jumping up 2 weight divisions. He is he's pretty. He's 6'2", so he's pretty tall for the division. But he's very lengthy. He's gonna have a 6-inch height advantage. He's got pretty good kicks as well. In the fight against Steve Garcia, he nearly has him knocked out in the first round from like an axe kick, which kind of probably threw off Steve's equilibrium a little bit. He kind of stumbled. He also hit him with a nice shot with the hands, wobbled Steve Garcia as well, but ultimately gets his eye just gashed out, and then bled out and ground and pounded out in that fight. So Ontiveros, kind of a kill or be killed fighter, but he just looks very fragile. I don't know if that's just because he's so tall and skinny, but he's been knocked out 7 times in 19 pro fights. It's not great. Let me look at the over-under in this one, because both of these guys come to scrap. Okay, well, over-under is not set out yet, but the fight to go the distance is at plus 260 and no at minus 375. So this one has violence written all over it. Dang, Ontiveros, I see this one getting over like really quick, to be honest. Ontiveros by KOs at plus 475. He's sitting at plus 280 right now as a dog. Probably not gonna touch it. But this fight, I would not put my money on either fight or either fighter just because it's gonna be violent. It's gonna be wild, and it's MMA. You know, anybody can get caught. But for the sake of the channel, I'll take Gabriel Benitez. So give me Gabriel in that one. Moving on, O'Day Osborne and Tyson Nam. O'Day, 30 years old, 3-2 in the UFC, coming off a KO win against Zaruk Adashev, which was pretty nice. Just kind of right over, cracked him, put him out. Really explosive athlete. His only losses in the UFC come to pretty good competition. Manel Kape, who was matched up against some pretty good fighters, but ultimately did not get to fight them because of cancellations. And then a loss to Brian Kelleher via guillotine. So can't be too mad about those. He's got 5 KO wins and 4 submission wins. So, I mean, he's going to push a pace on you. He's going to come to scrap, especially in the first round. As for Tyson Nam, 38 years old, 2-3 in the UFC. His losses also come to pretty good competition. 16-year pro. He's got a lot of experience under his belt. Not a ton in the UFC, but his losses in the UFC, Sergio Pettis, Kai Kara France, just fought for the title, and then Matt Schnell, his most recent fight and his most recent loss in January of 2021. Can't be too mad about those either. He's, got pretty good stand-up. 11 KO wins, 3 KO losses, 1 sub. This one I also see being over pretty early. Let me check that. Yeah, no lines out for those either. For any props on that one either. O'Day Osborne sitting at minus 240 though. Tyson Nam plus 200. This one's also pretty wide. It seems like all these lines just don't make sense to bet them straight. Just doesn't make sense. I don't know if that's just because of the big influx in people in sports books and betting, but a lot of these lines just get juiced so much one way that it's like, well, it's kind of dog or pass at this situation, but I have little to no confidence in betting the dog. So, it's tough. The fighter you want to back seems to get juiced to a price where you can't even, it's not even playable. So I'm going to take O'Day Osborne, but at minus 240, it's for the way he fights as well. Is it worth it? Not really. So I kind of want to look at the over-under, see what that's about, and then go from there. Look at props and stuff. If I'm going to parlay pieces, like I said, I have Lupi Godinez and David Onama parlay together. But I wouldn't, Godinez is going to wrestle. I'll talk about her later, and then Onama, I just have a lot of confidence in him. He hasn't been finished. Stuff like that for parlay pieces. That's kind of what you want to look for. That's what I look for, at least. So moving on though, give me O'Day Osborne for that one. But nothing on that fight as of now. I'll probably be looking to see what the over-unders are in that one, and any other props that I can see any value in. But moving on, Yusuf, Zalah, and Damon Blackshear. Zalah, 25 years old, 3 straight losses in the UFC. But he came into the UFC on a 3-fight win streak, and then fought Ilia Topuria, lost, fought Sung Woo Choi, lost, and then fought Sean Woodson and lost. So, you can't be too mad about, especially Ilia Topuria. Can't be mad about that one. Sung Woo Choi, decent. Sean Woodson, decent. He's only 25 years old. He's going to be moving down to bantamweight for this fight. Most of his fights have been at 145. This one is set to be at 135. He's got he's got really good defensive grappling. He was taken down by Ilia Topuria multiple times. He gets taken down. For one, he can get taken down. But his fight against Ilia Topuria, Ilia Topuria had him in some, really dangerous positions, and Zalah found a way to get out of it. He's got 2 KO wins, 5 submission wins, and he's never been finished. Either way, he doesn't really do anything great. He has decent movement on the outside, but his striking is okay. His grappling, he doesn't really look to grapple offensively, but his defensive grappling is good. He showed that. As for Damon Blackshear, he is the Cage Fury champion right now. So this will be his first fight in the UFC. He's 27 years old. He likes to lead with kicks, especially early in the fight. He's got really good scrambles in his fight with Josh Smith. He was, there were a lot of grappling exchanges, and it seems like he always landed on top, always finished on top. He ultimately won that fight via rear naked choke, and then also in his fight before that one in a rear naked choke. So he's got really good grappling. He's got 8 submission wins, 1 KO win. He's never been finished either. So both fighters never been finished. Blackshear sitting at plus 105 right now. Zalah minus 125. I have a 1.5 unit play on Blackshear money line. I feel pretty good about it. I don't think Zalah, like I said, he doesn't really do anything that great. If I think back to the Dante O'Mays fight and Dante O'Mays Hamdi Abdelwahab fight, I think where I messed up is that I was thinking too much of what, Hamdi didn't have instead of thinking of what Dante O'Mays does have. And what does Dante O'Mays have? Not much. I don't think he doesn't do anything that well. He doesn't have any strength that you're, as an opponent, you're really thinking about in your mind. So I think for Blackshear, what does he have to worry about with Yusuf Zalah? Not much. So I think he can push his wrestling, get the fight to the mat, and go to work. Maybe he'll be a little bit undersized. I'm not sure yet. Yusuf Zalah is 5'10", and Damon Blackshear is also 5'10". Maybe they fill out different with Zalah coming down to 135. But I feel good about Damon Blackshear this week, especially at this price. It's a playable price. You don't get that too often now. So give me Damon Blackshear, and we'll be looking forward to that one as well, because both fighters are pretty exciting, I would say. Moving on, Angela Hill versus Lupita Godinez. Very, very high on Lupita Godinez this week. She's coming off the win against Ariane Carnelossi. She's 28 years old. Um, they have this fight scheduled for a catch weight of 120. I'm not exactly sure why, but nonetheless, feeling really good about Lupita Godinez. She has there it is. She had dominant performance in her last fight. She had 13 minutes and 26 seconds of control time. She's very aggressive with the takedowns. But she's not really a finisher. She's got 10 fights in her pro career. She's only got 2 finishes, 1 KO and 1 sub. As for Angela Hill, 37 years old, 1-5 in her last 6. So kind of on a bit of a decline there. She's 13-12 in her pro career. So damn near 500. Damn near a 500 fighter, but she's been around since the beginning. She was on the first season of The Ultimate Fighter that involved the strawweight division. Lost to Carla Esparza on that one. But she's in a lot of close fights. You know, she's never been knocked out. She's got 5 knockouts on her record. Never been knocked out. She's got 0 subs. She's been subbed twice. But she can absolutely get controlled on the ground, as she showed basically in her last 2 fights against or her last fight against Verna Jandiroba. Got controlled for a good portion of that fight on the ground. And that is exactly what Lupita Godinez has done and what she should do in this fight. Just hunt those takedowns. You know, as the younger fighter, she's probably going to be a little bit more quicker than Angela Hill. Should be able to shoot and land a takedown at ease, and she has shown very good top control. You know, her last fight, to have 13 minutes and 26 seconds of control time in a 15-minute fight is pure dominance. That's why I'm so high on her. I think she's not really, maybe a step laterally in competition in this one, but maybe even a step down compared to Carnelossi, you know, at this point in Angela Hill's career. So I'm very, very high on Godinez this week. That's why I have her parlayed with Onama for 2.5 units. And then I also have her by decision for 2 units at minus 168. Her money line's at minus 360 right now, which is, you know, a tough play on its own. Hill at plus 285. So give me Godinez, and definitely one of my most confident plays on the card. Moving on to the fights that were supposed to happen last week, but did not. Jason Witt and Josh Quinlan. I won't be going over these too much because I went over them in my last predictions breakdown videos, but Jason Witt, 35 years old, 2-3 in the UFC, glass chin, slow reflexes, looks to wrestle, needs to wrestle in this one. Josh Quinlan had the funky drug tests. That's why they didn't fight last week. So I don't know why. You know, it's not this fight isn't scheduled on ESPN, but it's scheduled on Tapology, so I'm assuming it's happening. But if it doesn't, then, you know, just wasted. I guess I'll be wasting these 2 or 3 minutes that I'm talking about him, so I won't talk about him too much. But Quinlan, no contest Sunday Night Contender Series because of the drug tests. Sitting at minus 260 right now over Jason Witt at plus 195. Quinlan, you know, all fights by finish. Loves to throw right leg kick. He's got a very high guard. Hasn't fought the best competition before this. But I do think Josh Quinlan wins this one, so I'll be taking Josh Quinlan. Maybe throw him in a parlay. I'm not sure yet. Just because it's annoying when you have a fighter in a parlay and then their fight gets scratched and then you're kind of left with a lesser value on your parlay. Maybe you wouldn't have put that much money on something like that, or it just messes stuff up. But give me Josh Quinlan. If you're gonna back a fighter, might as well back him if he's on the juice, because if the fight gets labeled no contest months later because of drug test, I don't think your bookie's really gonna go back and take your money away from you. So give me Josh Quinlan. And then the last fight that I'll be talking about on the card was also supposed to happen last week. Ariane Lipsky and Priscilla Kushueda. It's this bantamweight bout. Maybe that's why. Yeah, they have it scheduled for bantamweight on Tapology, and both of these fighters usually fight at flyweight. So maybe that's why. Weight issues. Well, I guess because of the weight cut last week, maybe they didn't want to cut that much weight again. But I guess it's going to be at bantamweight this week. Lipsky, 28 years old, 3-4 in the UFC, former KSW champ, training out of King's MMA, pretty solid striker early in the fight, and then kind of gets a little aggressive and loopy as the fight goes on. 6 KO wins, 3 KO losses, 3 subs on her record. Kushueda, 33 years old, 3-4 in the UFC as well. Can get controlled on the ground, not the best grappler. She's been subbed twice. She's got 6 KO wins on her record, though. Loves to hold her hands low and just take a beating. That's her nickname, Priscilla Catch a Beating. I know a lot of people call her that. But she's sitting at plus 160 right now. Ariane Lipsky, minus 200. So the line has shifted towards the favorite in Ariane Lipsky a bit. I mean, at this weight, honestly, I would not feel good with Ariane Lipsky at minus 200 at all, to be honest. Kushueda is too much of a dog, I guess, to bet against. So won't be getting any of my money. But give me Ariane Lipsky for the sake of the channel. Shout out to her. If you are still watching to this point, I made a list of the top 10 baddest women in the UFC, or on the UFC active roster, on my TikTok at Hayjive Picks. I know a lot of you guys enjoyed that one. Ariane Lipsky made the list, made the top 10. So give me the queen, Ariane Lipsky, in that one. And that will wrap up the card. Should be a pretty fun one to watch. I see a lot of finishes. Probably not a perfect 100% finish rate on this card because that would be hard to do. But big title implications in the main event for the bantamweight division. Bantamweight division is absolutely insane. You got Chito Vera, Dominic Cruz this week, and then you got Marab and Jose Aldo, and then you got O'Malley and Piotr Jan, and then you got the title fight, Aljo and TJ. A lot of stuff happened in the bantamweight division. Interested to see how those play out, and also interested to see. I'm actually, I don't really get too excited about women's MMA too much, but I'm interested to see this Yasmin Yargui and Yasmin Luceno fight. Should be exciting. I mean, it should be a violent fight, and 2 very young prospects that I think could be around long term. So thank you for watching. If you made it this far, please leave a like, subscription, comment, all that good stuff. Follow me on the Hayjive Picks. Pushing, usually put out a video or 2 a day on there, whether it's a pick, just regular content. And then, I'll always put my predictions on the UFC card on there, and then I'll always put all my bets on the UFC card there as well. UFC is one of my favorite things to bet on. It's one of my favorite things to cover. That's why I have this channel. That's why I do these breakdowns, these predictions. That's why I do all this film study, all this preparation. It's it's enjoyable for me, and hopefully you guys enjoy it too. So thank you for watching, and I'll be back with a recap on this card. Usually put that out on Monday after the fights. So stay tuned for that, and then the following week, or what's after this week? Whatever is after this week, I'll be covering. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.